Hi, I'm Colin Morgan, executive producer of Built to Sell Radio. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, you're going to absolutely love our new newsletter, Built to Sell News. We share actionable tips and insights to help you get inside the mind of an acquirer and punch above your weight when it comes time to exit. To subscribe, simply head over to builttosell.com/subscribe to sign up for free today.
Shane Neman, welcome to Built to Sell Radio.
Thanks for having me, John.
You know, our listeners have just heard an introduction from Colin, our producer, about you and all your background, the different companies, and now being a venture capitalist and investor. I'd like to go back to where, it started with Junebug. I mean, walk through, if you will, this company. What was the value proposition? How did you get into it?
Honestly, it was unlikely because prior to that, I had done a business that failed. I dropped out of medical school to do that business. It was a SaaS business in 1999 when the word SaaS didn't exist. So we were trying to kind of come up with it on the fly, to be honest. And, it was .com boom and bust. And so I was in the bust phase, trying to figure out what to do. I moved into the dorm. My girlfriend was going to college in Manhattan at that time. I lived in New York City. And she was working at a few nightclubs on the side on the weekends and things like that. And I would go and pick her up at 3 a.m. and she'd get paid. And I'd go into the back office, the grimy back office of a nightclub or a bar, and she'd get paid a couple $100 or whatever it was. And I noticed that they were not using any computers. They were doing it all on pen and paper, which seemed completely crazy to me. And I also saw some other things that were really kind of backwards in terms of how they were doing marketing with, physical flyers and that kind of stuff. And there was no website that really kind of told you where to go and what to do. I don't know if you remember Time Out magazine, but that
Sure.
didn't really exist at that time. And so it was born out of me just looking around my environment and seeing this gap in the market. And I didn't really know how big the market was, but it was what I was seeing in front of me at that time. And I decided to go back to her dorm room, not my dorm room, and start coding because I have a degree in computer science. And, I built basically one of the incumbent tech stack and marketing stack that many of the nightclubs and bars used. And I built that business over about 10 years. And we did some really interesting and innovative things at the time. You have to understand it was a pre-Facebook, pre-MySpace, pre-camera phone, pre-MailChimp, pre-Eventbrite, pre-everything you can imagine that you have right now time. So no one even really had websites at that time, let alone, a nightclub having one or a bar having one. And we did that. We also went into ticketing, which really made the company explode because there were no companies like Ticketmaster servicing these types of companies and bars and nightclubs. And they were just too small. But then there was an inflection point where things like electronic music took off and live music took off, and they went from selling thousands of tickets to millions of tickets. And that really boded well for us because if you can imagine, you make $2 to $3, $4 a ticket in convenience fees, and you sell millions of tickets, it's a lot of money. So it's thin air money, to be honest with you, because all you're doing is completing a transaction, just like kind of what Visa or MasterCard or payment processors do. And so I built that company for 10 years. And then I exited that company to a competitor, mainly because I had started another company that I wanted to focus on.
And the competitor, just so I understand, so you're basically professionalizing the sales and marketing back office of a nightclub, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of a vertical market solution for bars and restaurants.
Yeah, it's kind of like Toast, right? If you think of restaurants.
Mm-hmm. And so as you're building this company, do you? I mean, this is you med school. You had a failure, which is very common. Then this success kind of takes off. Are you starting to get any sense of what it might be worth? Like, did you have a number in mind, like or there were multiple of revenue, or did you have any sense of what the thing was worth?
Um, no, all I knew is I had made a lot of money and I had a profitable business, which in tech at that time was not normal.
Like,
Just to be
how
honest with
much
you.
profit are you making at this point? Like, give us some numbers.
We were making a lot of money. We were making like millions and tens of millions in EBITDA. At some point, we just we were always kind of like a small business that did big things, and we leveraged the internet and software to do that. And we we did it with a small headcount. And we were first to market. So we were always the incumbent. And we had like search dominance, and we were doing sophisticated things like data analytics when no one was doing it. We were doing SEO and SEM. We were buying Google ads. I mean, what nightclub knew to buy new Google ads?
You're doing it on behalf of your subscribers, effectively.
Absolutely. So we were doing that, and we were also driving ticket sales for them, because the more tickets they sold, the better we would do as well. So
did I hear you right to say that you were at one point doing more than $10 million of EBITDA?
yeah.
Wow. So you're a kid at this point.
No, that's like 10 years into it, right?
Okay.
So,
you're
so I did this for a decade. I wish it was in the beginning. In the beginning, I was like scraping by. And it took a long time to get to that, my friend. I wish it was in the beginning. No, it was 10 years in the making. Yeah, but I guess after the first year, we were pretty much profitable. I was really looking at it as a career, not to package it and sell it. And for me, the way the exit came was a year before that. We realized that one of the things that we did was email marketing, and we had an email marketing platform, kind of like MailChimp and that kind of stuff. But we realized the efficacy of email was really kind of dropping off a cliff, because everybody was doing email marketing. So you would get it was a lot of spam going on, and you would get, we weren't the only game in your inbox anymore. And I was looking for a way to cut through the clutter. And around 2005, BlackBerry started to become prevalent, and people started texting. So I was like, why can't we send people text messages about events and those types of things and tickets? And I was looking for a solution like MailChimp to do that, but it just didn't exist. And so, kind of classic story. We built it internally, and then quickly realized that it could become its own software product, because there were other people who were getting our text messages, calling us, asking us how we did that, what software we were using, and the light bulb went off, the proverbial light bulb went off, and basically built as far as I know, we built the first SMB SMS platform, kind of like a la MailChimp or a Constant Contact kind of campaign management software. So then, kind of spun that out, made it its own self-serve product where you can sign up, put your credit card in, sign up for a plan, and start texting your customers. And we gave you all these compliance tools and ways to build your lists. And I did that for about a year, and I ran both companies for a year. And then I realized that the potential for easy texting, which is the company that I built, was really big. and it wasn't just in the niche of nightclubs. It could really be used by any kind of business. And I wanted to focus all my time and attention on that. It was also the shiny new object. 10 years into doing something, you kind of start to get ants in your pants about it, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And I called out my competitor who had been nipping at our heels for a really long time.
This is your competitor on Junebug, the first business.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. The first company. And I said, hey, today's your lucky day. Let's see if we can figure out a way for you to acquire Junebug, because there's something else I'd rather do. And I can work out something that's, workable and favorable for you. So
what was the reaction?
Disbelief initially, but then like eagerness to do it, because we were the incumbent. So, that was easy. Actually, it was pretty much an easy transaction, because if you sell to a competitor, it's very easy for them to understand what you're doing, right? Like as opposed to, let's say, a strategic, right? A strategic, you might fold into the services that they're offering as an additional service. But if it's a competitor, they know exactly what you're doing. They know how to measure your company. They know how to take over from day one. They have infrastructure. And so that's how it happened for us. We came to terms. It took a little while to come to terms. And I literally left the office, and they took the office over the next day, right? And we worked out which employees would stay and which ones would go, and the logistics of that. But as a practical matter, here's the domain. Have a nice day. Switch everything over to their name, and you got all the assets, and we got the wire. So good luck to you, kind of thing.
So give us a sense of the numbers at this point. Like, where are you at? And as much as you can share around valuation, I realize we've got to be. Well,
it was a very different time then. When was this? This was like 2005, 2006. So SaaS valuations were very different than they are right now. They were probably in the order of 5 to 8, 9 times max that you could get. I think the higher ones are on EBITDA, but mostly on revenue. SaaS is mainly based on ARR, right? So it was a little bit complicated for us because we had several lines of business. We had an ARR business, which was SaaS. We had a ticketing business, which isn't really ARR because there's no ARR to that. We also had a media business because we sold, ads on our website, and you could kind of either nightclubs could buy ads, or even we had Johnny Walker and a lot of liquor brands. We had Mercedes and luxury brands that wanted to kind of target this young urban professional demographic that had a lot of disposable income. So we could charge a lot for those ads. So that had a different value, right? So kind of merging it all together was an art. It was, there's no formula for that, right? It's also like what I was happy with to just be done with it at that point and be able to focus my time and energy on something else.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of our listeners will be in similar shoes in that they have different lines of business. They have different revenue streams, and some are viewed more favorably than others by acquirers. And so I just want to kind of scratch a little bit further on these three forms of revenue and how you thought about valuation. So again, you've got advertising, ticketing, and SaaS.
Yeah.
How did you sort of come to some sort of valuation formula for the advertising and ticketing?
It was a lot of negotiation, and it was a lot of being advised by accountants. There was a quality of earnings report done. I don't know if Your audience knows that, but that's a giant pain in the ass. To tell you the
Yeah,
truth.
yeah, we hear about that all the time. Yeah.
It is a giant pain in the ass. Actually, I learned a lot about my business through that process that I didn't really know myself.
Like what?
Um, I didn't really understand the concepts inside of quality of earnings and how good some of the revenue sources were that we had, what customer concentration meant and things of those nature, things of the, really kind of nitty gritty of accounting. I had high level basic understanding and reporting of like P&L and balance sheets and those types of things. But I don't think I really truly understood how good certain parts of the business were versus other parts. And maybe if I had known that beforehand, I could have pulled levers and changed things and done things differently to make the company even bigger than it was when I sold it. So maybe an exercise that would be beneficial is do the quality of earnings even when you don't have an acquirer, and just see, under the hood and see what you're dealing with before you go out and you market yourself or put yourself out there, because there might be some glaring issues that you want to fix before you do that.
So let's talk about that QOE for Junebug. I'd love to hear one thing that you discovered where you're like, wow, that's a hidden kind of, you've heard it referred to by M&A professionals as a Rembrandt in the attic. That like some part of your business was very attractive that you didn't even realize was valuable. And then equally, I'd love to hear one thing that you discovered through that process that was dragging down your valuation, that was a bit of a liability.
Okay, you have to understand, I sold it like 17 years ago, so
we're going to get to the more recent example in a second. But
yeah, I think on a high level, what I said was the customer concentration. I realized that, with ticketing, we actually had 3 or 4 venues that was driving the majority of our ticket sales because they were such popular venues, right? Mm-hmm. And, if we were just to lose one of them, it would decimate that business a lot. And so the value of that was adversely affected. And I learned that, and in easy texting, one of the things that we had that was very valuable, just to kind of go in the future a little bit, is that we had a lot of customers that were paying us $50 a month, right? And so $50 to $100 a month. And we didn't have like a whale that was paying us $100,000 a month or two, like, or many of those types of whales. And so as a practical matter, if we lost 100 customers, it wouldn't really affect us. And that makes for a very bulletproof business. And that makes that revenue stream a lot more valuable. So that's one thing. The other thing that we realized is the higher the ticket price, the less money we were making, which was weird because the processing fees were higher, and so the cut of our our service fee was less. The profit on our service fee was less. And that wasn't so obvious to me. And so we could have adjusted the higher service fees for bigger ticket items.
I see, because the service fee was flat, whether it was a $10 ticket or a $100 ticket.
Absolutely.
And so it was very profitable on a $10 ticket, less profitable on a $100 ticket.
Absolutely, because $4 on a $10 ticket is 50% of the 40% of the ticket price. And you're paying, I don't know, a 1% processing fee or something like that. So it makes a big difference.
And I'm curious that the company that was nipping at your heels, a junior competitor or someone that wasn't as big as you were, I wouldn't imagine they would have the money to acquire you. How did you structure it so that they could afford it?
Well, we did seller financing, some seller financing. Plus he went out and got money to do it. Um, I knew he was sophisticated enough to figure out how to get a loan, get investors, and those types of things to be able to do it.
What
I
proportion
also,
of the deal did you sell or finance?
um, it was I don't remember. It wasn't the biggest. It was enough that like if he never paid me back, I didn't care. I think that's a good rule of thumb because there's a real risk that you won't get it. And if the problem is that you should really think second and third order. Is like if I don't get this paid back, do I really want to take over this business again and like go through a court battle? And then okay, fine. After 2 years of court battle, that person would have probably decimated the business by then. And then you spent all these legal fees and you recoup what? A business that you didn't want to even do anymore. That's
So,
like half the business it was before.
so the proportion of your proceeds that you financed was small, was something trivial that you were okay if you didn't get.
Yeah, it was small enough that if I didn't get it, I mean, it wasn't like small, but it was small enough that if I didn't get it, I would be happy with just the cash that I got.
Got it. And did you end up receiving the full payout on the seller financing?
No, not I did. We got like a little bit more than half of it, and then I came to the conclusion that I'm not going to, I'm not going to litigate because at the end of the day, it's going to take away from my other business, and I'm going to spend all this money litigating. He obviously knew that too, because if you're sophisticated, you'll know that. Um, and I learned a lesson.
And did that leave you with a bad taste in your mouth about the whole M&A process that at the end of the day, it wasn't honored in the way that it was structured?
No, I mean you have to know who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a big corporation, the likelihood of something like that happening is low. If you're dealing with a mom and pop's operation, it could really happen, and it's a serious risk. So, but I can tell you one thing: when I did easy texting, they did want to kind of do a portion of it that was paid out over time. So I was like, great, put it in escrow, and then we'll pay it out over time.
Okay.
Right?
So for my listeners who may not know what you mean by put it in escrow, just describe that. That's a good pro tip. But what do you mean by that? So it's just if no one's ever heard of escrow.
It means like let's say I'm just making up a number. Okay, so let's say they're going to pay you $1 million over a 2-year period, right? They'll be like, okay, you put the $1 million in an escrow account that a lawyer is kind of overseeing. And there's an escrow agreement where there are payments made on a regular basis out of that account by the lawyer to you, as long as certain things are fulfilled, right? And it's like automatic, right? Like you don't have to thing. And if something goes wrong, that money is aside, and it's not like the seller or the buyer has that in their possession and they can keep it from you. And if you had to litigate, it's a lot cheaper and easier to deal with because there's a very clear agreement that dictates the payment of those escrow monies. So it's a good way to deter bad actors and keep everyone kind of in line.
Yeah, some of my listeners may have heard the term earnout before, or rolling equity with a private equity group. Just to be clear, this is different. This is taking some of the proceeds of the sale of your business and putting it in escrow, and a lawyer is effectively adjudicating whether the terms of the escrow have been met. And so it's not that you have to hit targets.
And you should always try and negotiate it that it's your lawyer, not theirs, by the way. Much better, friendlier terms.
Did you learn that one the hard way too?
No, but someone else told me that, and it makes a lot of common sense to do it that way, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you kind of work your way out of Junebug. It sounds like a great solution. You've got a competitor who kind of knows how to incorporate the employees and start to hit the
Mm-hmm.
ground running. Easy texting, so to be clear, was a solution for small businesses to text their customers. I get these sometimes with, like a chiropractor appointment. I'll get like a
Mm-hmm.
text saying, "Hey, you got a chiropractor appointment coming up in 2 hours." That was the type of solution.
Yeah, all types of texting. So appointment reminders. There was marketing emails. I mean, texts. There were people using it, like churches were using it to text their for events, the event invites, inspirational, motivational texts. Just really, our customers were kind of teaching us the different ways it could be used, which is amazing. Um, we had a company that would help you quit smoking, and it would send you a progression of text messages over a 3-week period to keep you motivated. So there's a lot of different use cases for it, but our system was flexible and easy to use so that any company could use it however they wanted to.
How long did it take you? You have a computer science background by training. How long did it take you to build the core technology?
Um, it took like 6 months, maybe. The initial that no, sorry, the alpha version just took 2 months because it was like just being used by me, right? So it was like a really shitty interface, and just like did three things. Like it's that you uploaded a list, you send a text message to that list, and it got replies, and then you could reply to those, right? Like an inbox kind of thing. Um, and then we slowly bolted on better, more features. And so I would say, about 6 months into it, it was like a pretty good product that did the core functionality of what everybody would want it to do. And then obviously over many, many years, it iterated into uh, more sophisticated features and more robust features. And we also had to scale because we had a lot more customers sending a lot more messages, those types of things.
What was your competitive moat? It just sounds like such a simple business to compete against. If you put 20 engineers in a boardroom and said, "Okay, build a texting app," it seems like it would be something that could be easily knocked off. Did you find that you were competing with a lot of people over
No, it
time?
was it was super strange. I don't even know. Maybe like I don't know. I have no idea why. But when we did it in 2005, you have to understand this is like 3 or 4 years before Twilio. It was a little bit complicated to figure out how to send out text messages
Hmm.
because text messages go through the phone systems and not through the internet. So it's not so obvious. It's not so easy. And so it took me a while to figure it out, but there was a solution to doing it. And it was pretty expensive to do it to get started. So there is there was that cost pre-Twilio. Let's just put it that way.
You've mentioned
And so,
Twilio a couple of times. I'm not familiar with Twilio. Is that
Twilio is a public company that's like an aggregator. So they have an API for text messaging. So
okay?
a lot of companies that do texting, they use them as their backend. So like a lot of people who are in this world know what that is. They're a big public company. Um, so there wasn't just like a plug and play solution at that time. And so trying to figure out how to do it was difficult. But I don't know. And I had that same question, to be honest. And so in the beginning, I went like 1 year and we like had nobody compete. We dominated search. Like there was nobody bidding on terms, and Google AdWords. So like my CAC was like 3 cents or 5 cents. It made no sense because there was nobody buying ads to compete against. And we also had, first placement on, the search engines. And then I started to get nervous because I'm like, wait, someone's going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So what I did, which might sound bananas, but it worked for a couple more years, is I created like 10 other websites, like group texting, this texting, that texting, and made new front end websites. And then I white labeled the software. And these websites, although they looked like they were different companies, they were using the same back end software that was just reskinned. And then I started running ads against each other so that it looked like there were like 20 texting companies out there or 10 texting companies, but they all used my software and they were all like under one umbrella, essentially. So that was a pretty interesting tactic that worked. For me.
So you effectively manufactured the illusion that there were lots of players, lots of competitors, so that if an outsider looked at it and said, well, there's no point in getting into that, there's already 20 companies doing it.
Absolutely.
That's
we just
that.
It didn't really make a lot of sense because we just took the playbook out of the email service providers like MailChimp and Constant Contact. I mean, it's just really just an analog to that, right? They do exactly what easy texting does, but for email, and we do it for text messaging. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, or I just took the best parts of whatever they did and used those strategies.
But presumably you knew it wouldn't have been too long before MailChimp and Constant Contact added a texting functionality to their platform. Sure, that actually something on your mind.
Yes. So they were potential acquirers. We spoke to Constant Contact. I mean, I spoke to Constant Contact a long time ago. But interestingly enough, Ben Chestnut, who is MailChimp founder, he wrote a whole blog article about how he didn't believe in text messaging and he thought it was spam. And so I was like, great, dude, don't go into text messaging. Have a nice day. And then the only time they came into text messaging is after Intuit bought MailChimp recently. And now they're offering texting. Like that's like 17, 18 years later, right? Or something like that. 15 years later.
So you're pretty sure MailChimp thought this was not for them, but Constant Contact, you had some conversations with.
I did, but they told me the same thing. And I walked out of the meeting immediately because I'm like, I don't really understand. If you think this is, I mean, like, didn't you start, Constant Contact? Like, what did someone tell you when you first started? Did they tell you this is spam? And you're like literally telling me that, like, I have compliance, controls and tools in my software, just like you do, and that this is spam. Like, where's the disconnect? Made no sense. Like, and I realized right away that there's no match. I just walked out. Like they were dumbfounded,
Okay. I want to know this. I find fascinating. So who reached out to who in the case of Constant Contact? Did they reach out to you?
Yeah. They reached out to me.
So they reached out to you and said, hey, can you come in and tell me what you're up to? And
there was this woman, Gail,
Gail,
who was the CEO. And she literally looked, I come from New York. She literally looked at me and like, is this spam? And I'm like, and I showed her the software, like it looks just like Constant Contact, like her own software. And I'm like, all right, this is not like, there's no, it's like trying to change someone's mind, to like move them from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat. There's no possible way that'll happen. And I was like, this is a giant waste of my time. And so I walked out.
Okay. So I just want to, I want to make sure I'm clear. when you say you walked out, I mean, did you slam your fist on the table and say, this is a total waste of my time? Or were you polite
No,
about it and say, this has been great?
no, I was like, listen, I said to her straight up, I was like, I don't understand. You send emails. I could tell you the same thing about your own software. And like, didn't you build this company? Like, what would you tell someone if they told you this is spam and like your people are spamming? You tell me the same thing that I would tell you. So like, you brought me all the way here to tell me that what I'm doing is possibly spam. So, I was like, great, have a nice day. I don't think this is going to work out. And I walked out.
And were you going there under the auspices of a potential acquisition? Did you think Constant Contact wanted to potentially acquire EasyText?
Yeah, I mean, that's not such a far, they didn't say that to me. They said partnership and not dumb, right? So like, if you want to be my partner and then tell me I'm a spammer, like that's not the right way to go, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, we were not a spammer. Like, in fact, anything, it could have been the Wild West then because there was no regulation on it. We were actually putting controls in place that people wouldn't spam. Like we would verify people and you'd have to, we had a lot of robust controls to make sure people weren't spamming. Anyway, but that's just an interesting anecdote because one of the things that happens when you're acquiring or you're being acquired or courted is a lot of people just want to probe you and
that's where I was going,
get information. Just get information and I don't know, like waste your time. That's the biggest issue. It's hard to figure that out. I mean, like I didn't really think that would be the outcome of that meeting, but it was, and it's surprising, but it's not uncommon.
But you took a calculated risk going to Constant Contact because clearly they could have said, thanks, Shane. We're good. We'll build it ourselves. Were you aware of clearly?
No, they were acquiring other They were acquiring other companies like loyalty companies. I mean, how hard is it to build a loyalty company? They could have done that too. And so they didn't. I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that's like afraid that someone's going to steal my idea and go and do it. I've kind of learned that doesn't really happen. It's all about execution. And, doing it better. We already had a big customer base. I was already making a lot of money. It was even more profitable than, in terms of just like EBITDA percentage. The software company was Easy Texting was a lot more profitable than.
How did you get Easy Texting before you decided to sell?
We got it to about 18 million in ARR. And that took about 8 years. But it was done super profitably. So I could have taken those like 60% margins that I was making and just kind of tried to do what a lot of other people do and, make $1 billion business. But like, I was happy with like the amount of money I was making. So like, and there was no competition. So I don't know, maybe I was in a different state of mind at that time. It was actually problematic because when I did sell, people didn't really understand how to value me because like a software company that makes money, how do you value that? Right.
How were you hoping? Like, how did you value it?
I valued it like how many years would I have to work here until I can make that same amount of money that they're about to pay me.
What was your calculus?
Well, first of all, you pay capital gains tax, which is 20% versus income tax, which is 40%, right? So you don't have to make as much. Let's just put it that way. And the other thing is that, I don't know, I was thinking like 8 years or something like that. if I get paid 8 years up front, and I don't really have to work for eight years, and I just like busted my ass for 8 years, that would be pretty sweet. I don't know. There was no scientific way of doing it for me. But they had their own scientific way of valuing it, and and again, still in 2013, 14, SaaS companies were not getting the same kind of valuations as they are now. Maybe if I had waited another 3 or 4 years, it would have been a much different outcome. But I mean, hindsight's 2020. Who knows?
So your
I would have.
is 8 times like free cash flow, cash that I could put in my jeans if I can get 8 times up front.
Yeah, it was like 8 to 10 times. It was big.
Yeah, and makes sense. Did you shop the business, or did you have someone approach you, or how did you go about selling it?
No, I was actually. It's really funny because I had initially thought about doing that, and we kind of did a little bit of shopping, just a very little. And first of all, I didn't know my numbers inside out about my own business, and it was like my first call was a total disaster because they were asking me simple things, and I just didn't know it.
What did they ask you that you didn't know?
I don't know, simple stuff like but you have to understand it was a different time too. So like these things were new, like LTV and ARPU and these types of things and statistics that are very relevant to my business, that I should have known financially. And all I knew is that like I was making a lot of EBITDA. Right? So like I knew the other things, but I wasn't really kind of concentrating on it. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize how important it was. And I didn't understand what levers and things I could do to change those things. And so I realized I needed to go back to the drawing board after that and know it inside out. And I had my accountant help me. I had an advisor that I had help me. And we started running like business intelligence and kind of getting much more accurate data from usage of our system and and how we were getting paid and how we were accruing versus cash and all this other kind of stuff that I just didn't think was important, but it was. And so that's the first piece of advice that I can give from my own experience is that, spend the time to learn like your own numbers, because like with me, when someone asked me those numbers and I didn't know it, they were like, see you later. Like, I'm not going to even waste my time. And so what happened was I got approached by one of my customers, one of my bigger customers, because they were doing kind of an analog of what we were doing for calling, and they had integrated our texting system into their own system and using us in the back end. And they kind of saw like, whoa, people are really using this text messaging portion. And they approached me and said, hey, you want to have a conversation? And I said, fine, let's talk. And, it started with me they came to me and I just logged into my backend and I showed them the whole system and I showed them like the last years of reporting. And that did the trick. Let's just put it that way. I wasn't afraid. I just logged in front of them. Like, I'm like, here, you can see I'm not bullshitting you. Like, I'm literally logging in live. And these are the numbers that I look at. And look at these text messages that are being sent out. And here are the payments. And here are the, things. And here's my chief marketing officer. And here's my team, I think that's really powerful. It speaks for itself. Also being unafraid. Like, what's there to be afraid of? So someone sees my numbers. Doesn't matter.
When you say you logged in, I'm assuming you logged into QuickBooks or some sort of accounting platform.
No, we had our own backend for our software that we use.
Okay, got it.
To manage our users, to manage our payments, to manage reporting and that kind of stuff. I mean, we're a software company, so I guess you could do that in QuickBooks if you're not a software company. But everybody has their own software that they use every day and they look at it, and that's the metrics that they use, right? So
to you, logging in, showing them around gave them confidence, and like the proof is in the pudding. It was a very compelling sales pitch, even though doesn't sound like you were trying to sell them on anything.
No, it wasn't. I was just literally showing them what I do every day, and I showing them around the system. It wasn't a pitch, but it was really powerful because it was like a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And the concept of what they had, it let them really kind of visualize how this could work inside their own company and how it could fit.
This company, Callfire, they're one of those companies that do like mass phone calling systems for like political candidates. Is that
they did their robocalling, and they did. They also had a call center, contact center software. So that you could run inbound calls or outbound calls. But as a practical matter, they're now called Easy Texting because that line of business is not as popular anymore. But texting is still very, very popular.
Yeah. So with regards to Junebug, you said, look, eight years of free cash flow, and I'm fine. How did you approach the negotiation with Easy Texting? I mean, like, how did you think about valuation? What was the offer they made? How did you go through that kind of stuff?
They asked me for an offer, and I told them my number, and that was the thing. How did I come up with that? I just same. So easy Texting was the one where I said, okay, if I get 8 to 10 years of thing, and I can stay on for a couple of years, and there are a few other important things that I wanted. Like I didn't want to move to LA. They were in LA, and I wanted all my employees to stay and kind of keep their jobs and that kind of stuff. And there's other things that I wanted. So I kind of put the package together, and I was also pretty cognizant of not being unreasonable. So I gave them a high but reasonable offer. Let's just put it that way.
How did you know it was high but reasonable?
Because I asked other people that did this, like my lawyers and my accountants and stuff that do this pretty often. How did I know? I didn't know 100%. Could I have maybe gotten more money? Possibly. I don't know. But I also wanted it to work. So I didn't want to give something ridiculous and then be like, oh, dude, and just like walk away, right? So you have to kind of toe the line, right? You have to toe the line of what can turn someone off and completely make them disinterested, right? Because I think that can happen. The one thing that you could do is, and the one thing that was very interesting is that after we came to the agreement, the other thing that I did, and this was another piece of advice that I was given, is like to continue to crush it at the company, because until that check and that money hits your bank account, it ain't over until that happens. And first of all, you want your business to continuously grow, and you want them to continuously want it, and these things could take 3 or 4 months to happen. And also all of a sudden your business is like flatlining or doing worse, they can renegotiate you and be like, hey, what's going on here? Like this isn't the same as it was 3 months ago. And so we're not going to pay you the same, right? But you could potentially, negotiate for more at the end.
Did you?
And say, hey, look, yeah, I did a little bit, but it wasn't like an egregious amount. And then what you could do is, based on whether or not you want to stay, you can kind of do these things where if you hit certain goals, you get paid even more money.
Yeah, I was going to
Post-exit.
ask you, how did you guys structure it in the case of easy texting? Did you have an earnout, or did you roll some equity, or was there any structure?
No, I got a little bit of equity. They have to have a holdback just in case, I was lying about something, or which is it's more of a holdback than an earnout, meaning like, you can only do a certain amount of diligence. And if, I could have been lying about how much money I owed someone or something like that. Right. And so, as long as like everything's kosher, you get paid that part. I got the majority up front. It's hard to not do that when you have a company that's generating a lot of cash. It's hard to convince someone to not, give something up that's cash flowing, right? Unless they're getting paid up front.
Same question as before, though. Some people listening would be like, wow, I mean, Shane had this great business. Why sell?
It's still a great business. Oh, why sell? I don't know. Maybe because I would have died if I worked that much longer. I don't know. Because I don't know. I'm joking, but I did work a lot, and I got something in return, which was a lot of time to do other things that I really wanted to do in a different season of my life. I got to be a really present father. I got to move to Miami from New York. I got to enjoy some of the things that I had worked so hard for. I got to pivot to being an investor. I don't know why. Only you can answer that question for yourself of why. Right?
It sounds like you have, though.
I did answer. I knew that I was at that point ready to stop for a little while. I had also been working for 20 years straight almost, so.
You did go to work for Callfire for a short period of time, as their head of corporate development, as I understand it.
Yeah.
We always want to get inside the head of acquirer. So during that period of time, what was it like to be on the other side of the boardroom table? What was surprising to being an acquirer? You'd sold 2 businesses and now you were an acquirer. What was surprising to you?
It was surprising to me that there are other people inside a company that will do a crappy deal just for the sake of doing a deal.
Say more.
There was actually part of the reason why I left was we had looked into an acquisition that I had found. And then last minute I found a red flag and I'm like, we shouldn't do this. And I was outvoted. And then I was like, I came from a place of working for myself for 18 years. Right? And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm not, this is a giant mistake. And I'm like, listen, if you guys do this, I'm going to leave because I can't do shitty deal, just to be honest with you. I just can't see this happen. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And I'm not trying to say I told you so, but sure enough, they undid it a year later. And I was right. And then that person who forced the company to do it was no longer there either. Right. So, look, it's a double-edged sword. The expectations on you and the heavy lifting of all comes off your shoulder when you join a bigger team. Um, but at the same time, your voice is not the only voice, and you could be outranked when you were used to be the boss, right, and make all the decisions. So,
what did it feel like to be outranked for the first time in 18 years?
It's a good question. I don't know. I was a little. I was confused. That's probably what it was like. It was really confusing because I could see right in front of me what the problem was, and other people could not see what I see, and I couldn't get them to see what I saw. And so it became frustrating, and I decided I had to leave. So that's probably what the right way to describe it is.
And now, as an investor, and I was reading on your something like 50. As a VC, you've invested in 50 startups.
Yeah, I've done a lot of. I do a lot of. I've done. It's over 10 years, so it sounds like a lot, but 10 years is a long time. Yes.
And now that you're investing in other people's companies, what are you noticing about the most successful entrepreneurs you back, and how they might be different than some of the ones that are going nowhere?
Oh, there are like subtle signs that I use. I'll schedule an email to go out to them at like 10 in the night, and they respond to me like within 5 minutes at that time. That's a good sign. If they reply to me 2 days later, different sign. I think now it's more like kind of I've internalized it, so I don't even consciously know how I'm analyzing it. It's just very kind of natural to me. When I talk to them and I prompt them and I ask them questions to like I was asked to know if they know their business, and I also want to see if I can get under their skin. Because 90% of early stage investing is you're betting on the horse. You're betting on the person. You're not really betting on whatever it is they're doing. Yeah, that's important, and you should be aligned on that. But like, as a practical matter, you're really trying to bet on this person and whether or not this person can make it happen, right? Again, like I didn't do anything special. I did text messaging, right? Like, right? Just like you said, anyone could do it, right? But like I just did it first, and I did it better, and I worked harder, and I did all these other things that, like I made the competition, I made all these websites and like kind of really thought through it. So I'm really kind of looking for those guys and girls that are, thinking outside the box, working hard. It's not so complicated, right? You're just looking for hardworking, smart, dedicated people that you think can survive.
I want to go back to the same question that I asked you about being at Callfire as the head of corporate development, and that is, as a minority shareholder, which most VC investments are, you're not buying majority, you're buying some shares. You must continue to get overruled, right? Like some either the entrepreneur or fellow investors say, I thank you for your input, Shane, but I want to do it my way.
Well, actually, this is a good point. I don't invest that way. There are many people who do invest in that way, and they want to get a board seat, and they want to have control, and they want to kind of dictate how things go. Listen, if I were to do like, what's the point of me doing that? I'm betting on the horse. they obviously should know and more than I do and should be better than I am. And in fact, I could be really detrimental to them, giving them some like old advice of something that I might have done 10 years ago that's no longer relevant. And I could mess up the entire program for them. My thing is that like, I'm betting on you. Go and do what you want. If you need my help, I'll be happy to help you however I possibly can. If you need a connection and you want to come to me, whether it's for emotional support or a contact I may have or some advice I may have, I'll be happy to give it to you. But as a practical matter, I want you to go and do your thing. Like, here's your money, go and do your thing and make some magic happen, right? Like, you don't need me. Like that, I'm trying to really invest in people who don't need me. And that's actually really kind of a paradigm that's counterintuitive, right? Like most companies that want to buy companies that don't necessarily want to be bought, right? Because they're doing so well. Like, like why, just like you said, like, why would I want to sell? I was making so much money, right? But they wanted to buy me even more and harder towards the end because they kept on making more money and accelerating the business. And it's counterintuitive. Like people want what they can't have, right? Or what they want you when you don't want them, right? It's the same thing with venture capital investing, right? Like the best, founders are the ones that don't need your money because everybody's willing to invest in them, right? Because they're that good. It's the same concept. So if I have to like give you money and then like tell you what to do, like what's the point? Right? That's it's counterintuitive, right? But it is what it is.
Well, I think you've done an amazing job of sharing the three hats that you've worn, both a two-time entrepreneur as well as a corporate development head, and now as a VC. So I'm super grateful for you wearing all three hats for our listeners today.
Absolutely.
If folks want to reach out to you and say hi on social media, are you a LinkedIn guy or Instagram?
Yeah, I respond on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn all the time. So yeah, I check my messages and that's probably the best way. Or I have a contact page on my website and I read those emails when people email me through the website.
Awesome. Okay. We'll put your LinkedIn profile, your website in the show notes at builttosell.com. Shane, thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was super fun.